Today, we are tearing down an old, broken idea in advertising. We're moving away from the hunt for that one single perfect ad and stepping into a much smarter world, a world of constant, data-driven evolution.
The greatest strategic failure in modern advertising is the masterpiece myth, believing that you need to find one perfect ad. Let's just let that sink in. This is a direct shot at the way most advertising has been done for decades. It's that romantic but totally flawed idea that with a spark of genius and a big budget, you can craft a single ad that will just work forever. But this whole approach is a strategic failure because it completely ignores a fundamental truth, a neurological fact about how our brains actually filter information. The real answer, as we're about to see, is something called modular mutation. It's about building a system that works with human psychology, not against it.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to really unpack the masterpiece myth. Then we'll build the solution, the mutation engine blueprint. After that, we dive into the cool neuroscience behind the brain's novelty switch. Then we'll take it from theory to mastery, and finally land on a powerful new mindset. Evolve, don't create.
Okay, let's start with the core problem, a concept the source material calls creative waste. This is that black hole where marketing budgets go to die. It's the incredibly frustrating cycle of launching an ad that just flops. And the worst part, you're left with no data, no real learnings, and absolutely no idea why it failed. It is a massive silent killer of campaigns. This slide lays out the two worlds of advertising perfectly. On the left, you've got the static ad gamble. Think of it like going to a casino and putting all your chips on a single number. You bet your whole budget on one ad. If it loses, the money's gone and you're left completely in the dark. You have no idea what went wrong. Was it the hook, the offer? Who knows? But on the right, you have a totally different way of thinking, the iterative loop. Here, you're not a gambler, you're an engineer. You build ads from modular, interchangeable parts, and you let the data tell you which combination wins. It's predictable, it's evolutionary, it's not a game of chance. And here's the thing about the static ad gamble. Even when you win, you eventually lose. This is because of something called creative fatigue. Even your home run ad, your masterpiece, has a shelf life. The moment your audience has seen it a few times, their brains just start tuning it out. Your return on investment tanks, not because the ad was suddenly bad, but simply because it was static. It never changed. And that fatigue is the wall that stops most ad campaigns from ever truly scaling. So, if static ads are the disease, a dynamic system has to be the cure. This brings us to the mutation engine, a really powerful framework that's specifically designed to break ads apart, generate new variations, and systematically beat creative fatigue. So how does this engine actually work? Well, it's an elegant three-stage process. First up, deconstruction. You take a starting ad, a seed ad, and you break it down into its core DNA. Next, recombination. You start mixing and matching those core pieces to create a whole matrix of new ad versions, all from the same original shoot. And third, my favorite part, natural selection. You launch all of them and you let the market decide the winner. The only judge that matters here is CPA, or cost per acquisition. The ads with the lowest CPA, the ones that work the best, they survive and get more budget. The rest, they go extinct. It's literally evolution, but for advertising. Now, to deconstruct an ad properly, you have to understand its basic anatomy. You need to stop seeing an ad as one solid piece of art and start seeing it as three distinct Lego blocks. First, you've got the hook. This is just the first 0 to 3 seconds, and it is by far the most important part for grabbing someone's attention. Then you have the body, which is where you deliver your core message or show your product. And finally, the CTA, the call to action. That's the closer that tells people exactly what to do next. And this deconstruction is what unlocks massive scale. Just look at this variant matrix. Imagine during one single video shoot, you film 5 different hooks. One's a question, another hits a pain point, one shows a great result, you get a customer testimonial, and maybe a surprising fact. Then, you shoot just 2 different versions of the body and 3 different calls to action. With a little bit of editing, just by swapping these interchangeable parts, you've turned one ad shoot into 30 unique ads. That's not working harder, it's working smarter, it's algorithmic. But why on earth does this work so well? I mean, why can changing just the first 3 seconds of an ad completely change its performance, sometimes by a factor of 10? Well, the answer isn't in some marketing textbook. It's pure neuroscience. And it's all about a little switch that's built into every one of our brains. Let's really focus on this question. You can have the same message, the same product, the same offer, but you swap out that opening hook and suddenly performance goes through the roof. It seems crazy,
But it's possible because our brains have a very ancient, very powerful system for deciding what's worth paying attention to, and maybe more importantly, what's safe to ignore. Think about it. Our brains are bombarded with information every second of every day. To cope, they evolved a spam filter called Novelty Detection. It's an old survival mechanism that forces us to pay immediate attention to anything that's new, different, or unexpected. It's why a weird noise in the middle of the night can jolt you awake. The system is automatic and you can't turn it off. Now, the flip side of novelty detection is a process called habituation. This is basically your brain's ignore button. It's how your brain learns to actively tune out stuff that's repetitive and unchanging, just to save energy. It's why you don't feel your watch on your wrist after a few minutes. And in advertising, habituation is the absolute enemy. It leads directly to what's called ad blindness, where your ad becomes literally invisible to your audience.
This chart shows you the whole game in one picture. Look at week 1. The original ad is brand new, it's fresh, and its relevant score is a fantastic 90%. The brain's novelty detector is firing on all cylinders. But fast forward to week 3. After people have seen it a few times, habituation kicks in. The brain has flagged it as old news, and relevance plummets to 35%. Now here's the magic. Look at that third bar. That is the exact same ad running in week 3, with one tiny change, a mutated hook. And boom, relevance shoots right back up to 85%. You've essentially reset the brain's novelty detector. By showing it a new beginning, the brain treats the whole ad as new, completely bypassing that ad blindness filter.
So we've got the theory, we've got the brain science. Now for the most important part. How do we take all this powerful insight and turn it into a practical, repeatable system? How do you actually put this into practice and master it?
Mastery really just comes down to 3 core principles. First, and this is a huge mental shift, you have to start doing modular shoots. You stop filming one linear script. Instead, your goal on set is to film a library of parts, 5 hooks, 2 bodies, 3 calls to action. Second, you have to focus your energy on the highest leverage variable. And as we've just seen, that's the hook. About 80% of your testing and variation should happen right there in those first 3 seconds. And third, you have to measure everything with ruthless objectivity. Use CPA per variant as your non-negotiable metric. The data is the boss, not anyone's opinion.
And all of this brings us to our final and maybe most important insight. This is so much more than just a clever tactic. This is a complete paradigm shift in how we should think about the goal of advertising itself. Here it is. This is the central idea that changes everything. Your job is not to create a winning ad out of thin air. Your job is to evolve one through relentless testing and data-driven selection. You're basically applying the principles of natural selection to marketing. You start with a good idea, you introduce variation, and you let the market, the environment, select the fittest mutations. You're no longer a creative gambler hoping for a lucky shot. You're an engineer building a system for predictable success. And that brings us to our final thought. When you let objective data guide your ad's evolution, you stop pushing messages at people. Instead, you're systematically discovering the exact combination of words and images that pulls them in. You're building marketing that's perfectly evolved to align with their brain's built-in wiring for novelty and for relevance. You're creating advertising that pulls them toward value because you've engineered a system to discover exactly what it is they truly value.